Hello guys and welcome to the video. So today we got a lot to talk about. I literally just recorded the reloaded video, and there was so much to talk about in that video, and I didn't even talk about a lot of my personal things on it. I just literally went over the details, and that video was pretty long. Hopefully I can cut it down a bit, but I essentially in that video went over everything, and in the next few videos I wanted to kind of talk about some ideas that are going to be had. So the one that we're talking about in this video is 2A's. So in the Summoners War Reloaded live stream, they teased to us the two new 2A's, which are going to be the Frankensteins and the Living Armors. So here you go. Frankensteins, Bulldozer, and Copper are going to be the biggest ones for a lot of people. But these are the next 2A's, right? And they're gonna look insane. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait. I really cannot. I mean, the Living Armors already look pretty nuts, so I can only imagine what they're going to do to improve them. It's gonna be really hard for them to disappoint with these. The Frankensteins are gonna look sick too. But rather than making a video trying to predict what their skills are going to be like, I'd like to talk more or less about a thought that I've been having for a long time about 2A's in general. And you get a lot of people who talk about oh, I can't wait for them to potentially do a Penguin Knight 2A, or I want them to do a Bounty Hunter 2A or whatever. But for me, I've always had a specific idea of what 2A's they're going to do based off of a few things. So let's go through here, and I'll tell you the rule that I believe that they've set for themselves when making 2A's. When making 2A's, it seems like for every unit that's there, it either follows a specific theme, or more likely, they are getting monsters that used to be really big back in the day, way back, and then just essentially revamping them, making them usable again. So it's for example, Bernard was a pretty good unit, no doubt. Kind of the same for Spectra, but those were two really big units, so they pulled them forward and gave them 2A's. The same thing with the Inigamis, where Ramahan was a really big unit. Bella Dion is a really big unit. Rayoke and Crow and all them were okay, but those were really big units. Sorry, I'm turning down the volume. The War Bears, we already know War Bears back in the day were used a lot in guild content. They're very rarely used anymore, and I think even after 2A's they're being very rarely used, but the War Bears are still pretty good units. And it's just the same is being followed with a lot of the 2A's we have now. I mean, here you got the Hell Ladies, you got Kali, who was being used in guild content. The Fairies, the Fairies were kind of there, but they also follow a theme, so. You had the Pixies, Shannon was really big. We can keep going. Lumel, what was it? Ashir, I think? Ashir was a really big deal. The Martial Cats, I'm not too sure about the Martial Cats. I wasn't really big with the Martial Cats back in the day. I believe maybe the light one or the fire one, I can't remember, was being used. Lulu is obviously a big part of this. Thrain back in the day was used tons. I don't know too much about the other Reapers. Here, Darien, Cayenne, whatever, the Fire Vagabond was used tons. Here you get Megan, who was used tons. So it's all these monsters had some usage back in the day. And that's essentially where my theory came off with how they were making 2A's. It's obviously these are monsters that were pretty big deals to us back in the day, where nowadays we don't use them too often because there's just better units. And then last night they announced that Living Armors and Frankensteins are getting 2A's, and it's hey, that it would make sense because Bulldozer was a really big part of Siege and guild content, And the same thing with Copper, the Living Armor. They were really big for Siege. So now it makes me look back at a lot of our units and makes me think, what units did we have that we used to use tons and we don't use anymore because it's just outdated? And immediately what came to mind is Basalt. Basalt was used tons for TOA. Where is it? You also had Mantura and kind of Shylock, but Mantura was used tons, and they're just not used anymore. I mean, some people might still use them, but they're not really used anymore. There's just better units. So we might eventually see a 2A for Colleen for sure. The Garudas might see a 2A. The Hellhounds might see a 2A, because these were units people were actually using, right? Infernos might. I think mainly it's like, you know what? I'll one up this, right? I have 2 sets of units that are going to be the next 2As. I'm predicting this now. It's either going to be Colleen and Mav, or AK the Harpoos and the Penguin Knights as 2As after the Frankensteins and the Living Armors, or it's the Mammoths and the Serpents. Because all 4 of those monsters were really big, especially Mav. Mav is one of those units that I'm like, I know for sure is getting a 2A. I never doubt that he's ever going to get it. Like, he's not. There's no way. This game, he's getting a 2A. That's all I got to say. He's getting a 2A. And that's a prediction I'm putting up front. I'm putting that up front. And when that day comes, I'm going to come digging all the way back to this. And I'm gonna pull it out my ass. I'm like, hey, I told you guys this. And it's just because, again, these were units that were really, they were used a lot. And it's just like, every time they release a new 2A, it's just like, it seems like they confirm that feeling of, you know, hey, here's a monster you guys used to use tons, but you don't use anymore. It's pretty much getting a revamp, right? It's getting a 2A. So it's like, you look back, Serpents, Mammoths, Harpoos, and Penguins are for sure getting 2As. Then you got other like secondary units that might get 2As, like Hellhounds, or Infernos, or even the Imp Champions. But for sure, those 4 monsters that I said, they're getting 2As. But I'm very curious as to what you guys would think about the 2As. Do you think that they're following that theme? They're just getting monsters that used to be really just used tons, and they're just giving them 2As, so it allows us to predict, you know, like new monsters. It's just like, what do you guys think? I don't know. Who knows? Maybe the Harpies get a 2A. But that's essentially what this video is. It's just a little bit of a fun video. But I'm curious to see what you guys think. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.